welcome live. We're going to be carrying on painting the Bladeguard Veteran. If you have a look there, you'll see that we have made quite a bit of progress since we finished the video. So I didn't want to leave it as it was. My fiance came home and I carried on, just doing a few extra details, but we'll go over all of that. For the most part, we left off with the shield in a fairly decent way, nearly completed, and now we have most of the miniature looking pretty good. We are also at some point today going to do transfers as well. So that'll be fun. I've not done a veterans transfer before, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. Now again, if any of you have any questions, if you've got any tips that you want for painting different colours, I have various different miniatures with me today. I've got some of my Blood Angels, if any of you like painting red. Now that is my Kill Team Captain. And I've done some pretty unique trim on him just to make him look as if he's more ornate than he is from the regular miniature, which looks a bit, yeah, it's okay, it's nothing crazy. Whereas I think this one looks fantastic. So we also have Dante sat here as well. So if any of you wanting to paint any gold, again, just let me know. And if you want more hints and tips in the future, please, please, please like and subscribe. It makes a world of difference. It really, really does. So, like I say, we'll shortly be getting on with the Bladeguard in the next minute or so. I'm just going to get up the chat on here. That way, if any of you have any questions, we can go through it. Give me a moment. It's more of the back end stuff, but we need to get it done. And if you want to say a big hello in the chat, that'd be cool too. Nice to actually speak to people rather than just being in a bit of a void. And there we go. Right, I've got chat up in the corner there so I can see any messages that come through. And let's get to work. Now, looking at what we now need to do, we have a lot of blue highlights that are required. So I'm just going to take my light, and I can't tilt it down any further. It's a little blinding for me, so maybe somewhere across that region there. There we go. Now, any of you have seen me highlighting Macragge blue, what I like to do is take Macragge blue, I like to shade it with some Drakenhof Nightshade, and I like to highlight with, if I can find it, Rust Grey. So Rust Grey is a nice, vibrant blue highlight. It's not so crazy as to overpower it. And then for any very final highlights, I like choosing something like Blue Horror, which I'm not sure if they still make that paint anymore. That's quite an old one. But if you're at a pinch, it's a little less vibrant, but Celestra Grey is also good just for a dot. In fact, you can see it's slightly, well, I won't say it's brighter, but it's a different shade. It might stand out a bit more if you wanted to use that. So it's a good technique. Any of you who have some reasonably nice brushes, these are the Artificer series from Citadel. Apparently not the best, but I seem to get good results from them. But yeah, just give them a nice clean in some brush soap. Just getting into the fibres a bit there. That will help condition as well. And then just clean it out, make sure it's nice and soft and ready for use there. So we'll keep that to the side. You can see it's quite a disgusting pot, is that? Picks up all sorts of colours that it strips. But yeah, it's very useful. Now, let us get out our Rust Grey. Give that a nice little sharp point. I have some there that's still not the best. We'll see if we can thin it down a bit on the wet palette. Okay, you can see my head in shot. I'll try to keep myself out of shot as much as I possibly can. As you can see, we've done a slightly different setup. Not for any particular reason, but I thought it'd be a bit nicer, do a little bit of set dressing and, you know, just make it look a little bit cooler for you all. Just want to use the very edge of the brush just to get this highlight in here. And being nice and steady and careful. Again, that light is just pointing the wrong way for me. I'm going to see if there is something that I can do with this light first. Hopefully nothing to affect you guys too much, although the camera might shake a little bit. You're all sharing a tripod. Try and get my arm slightly out of shot there. There we go. I'll spin that around the other way. Okay. I know, riveting content. This is what everyone wants to see, is the setup. It's surprisingly difficult when you're running it for an iPhone, and I don't really have any decent controls to really set it up the way that I like. But yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah, it's a bit less blinding now. I can concentrate. I'm gonna go pick up my extra small, because I think that's going to be a better brush for these finer highlights. So again, I'll get off the excess soap from that. Dip back into our rust grey. I'm just going to be really, really delicate with it. So we just want the edge of the brush just to glance across there. So a lot of people struggle with this style of highlighting, and I think a lot of that comes down to it's just not being used to using the edge of your brush quite so much. And again, working with relatively thin paints, we can always put on more layers if we need to. Just gonna move Dante out of the way. And in fact, look at that. Let me get him in shot and actually look at the right one. Friggin' awesome miniature. One of my all-time favourites. I have the original in metal, and that is a disgustingly hideous, hideous model, but they took everything that was great about it and refreshed it perfectly. Just scouting for some light here. Now, you might notice the brush starts splitting. You can give it a twist or just give it a wash and then go back in with some fresh paint. So that is not correcting itself. I'll dry out that, give it a nice twist with my tongue. Some people find that disgusting. I, on the other hand, have been doing it for so long that it's completely normal to me. This light being on one side is a little frustrating. I don't know if you've seen as well, with the white that I've done on here, there's a really nice like recess to it. So the recesses are actually Drakenhof Nightshade. You can thin it down a bit if you don't want a deeper recess, but for me I wanted a nice dark recess in there, just to give you that pop and that contrast. But you don't have to go quite as extreme. I mean, the helmet's a little less extreme, it was the same technique, but just with a little less punch to it. Just really focus as we get this inner edge highlight down here. And then across the top of the shoulder there. Now what I'll do as well today is we'll go into applying transfers as well. We'll do all this prep for the shoulder. We'll apply the veteran transfer, which is quite a chunky bit. But that is absolutely fine. So if you can see that, it's not too crazy, not too thick a line. You've still got a dark section between the highlight and the white trim. I'm just going to go grab my transfer fixer. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes you don't need it. But it's good to have around. Have a figure holder should we come to need it. And what I'm going to do is just grab my transfers from here. So if anyone's got any questions, they want to know any specific techniques, please do let me know. I would be happy to oblige. So what I'm going to pull out is one infantry transfer sheet. Let's see if I've got a brand new one. Not that it makes a difference, but just to keep my options open. That way you can see a fresh one as well. How fresh is that? It's fresher than that one. There we go. And then I'm also going to go into my Ultramarines upgrade sprue because that also has a transfer set. So it might come in useful for this. We'll see what's on there. If there's anything particularly ornate for a transfer, that could be useful. So a lot of these miniatures had been built, well, talking 6 months to a year, roughly. So this has come out since, and this is a really useful kit. This is, if you collect Ultramarines, I'm sure it's on your list of things to purchase anyway. But there we go, look at that. Transfer sheet with a lot more options there. See if I can knock that back. Yeah, sorry about the flickering. As it is, cameras don't always like LEDs. There's a 20-watt lamp next to it, which is quite useful because you can see what's going on. I can kind of see what's going on. Now we have some really nice pieces here, so we'll use this to point. You've got Tyrannic War Veterans with these two sections here. We have some of the iconography that you would use for a veteran. And little cool pieces, gladiuses. We've got tiny gladiuses of different colours. That's really cool. That might be useful. Again, the Bladeguard, so I'm sure we can think something like that. We have an Ultramarines cog, so for Tech Marines, that's really useful. Ultramar logos, a lot of these are for tanks. So I think here we can go in with one of these white pieces with the gold. I think we're going to go for that one with the laurel to it. Or perhaps we go for the one with the gold rim. Lots of options. It's one of the nice things with these transfer sheets that I never really cared about as a kid. So when I was doing this many moons ago, I say many moons ago, I'm not actually that old. But when I was doing it enough moons ago that the miniatures weren't quite as well detailed and there's a lot of metal pieces, you could get NAF transfers. They weren't particularly good, and things like the decal fixes weren't as readily available. Let's lift this off. For my sins, using the extra small brush for some reason. But that is a really nice decal. Make sure it's the right way up. Just gonna drop that on there. Gonna see that it's lined up correctly, which it is. I'm just gonna put a bit of decal fix on it. And that will layer it down, although that is actually going down pretty much perfectly. If we can get away without using decal fix, that would be very nice indeed. Okay. Just drop a little, that's too much. Just a little bit more liquid under there. So this is just using normal water, normal tap water, nothing crazy. Yeah, these are nice decals. You just smooth everything out. And then what I'll end up doing is once that has dried, we'll go over it with a matte varnish. So if any of you are using Citadel paints, you have Ardcoat. Please do not use that on the full miniature. I've done it before with Ferranerios. It's a pain in the ass. In fact, I did it as well with Captain Titus, and I had to go back over with a few coats of Storm Shield to get it back, which you can't really tell, but there is some areas where it's a bit more hazy, I think is the right term. So they might have to be gone over with a few extra bits. Hi, Pat. So Pat is in the chat. Pat is my father, for any of you who are wondering. Please don't spam him with messages saying that. But yeah, welcome. Let me make sure I can see all messages on here. So yeah, hope you're well. And as you can see, I'm spending, well, I've got another hour and a bit of painting, getting this veteran done. Right, now that's started to dry off nicely, I'm going to take a small brush with Storm Shield and we're just going to go over it. And that's just going to lock it in the same way that people use other decal fixes. We're just going to do it with some matte varnish. I've not had any problems with this technique before. I don't expect to have any problems with this technique in the future. Whilst we're here, might as well matte varnish a few other bits that are done at this stage. The shield has already been matte varnished. Any points that are a bit high touch, like the sword, that's always a useful thing. So just varnish things up. Let me see if I can message back. There we go. So any of you that have just joined us, if you can, leave a like and subscribe. It's really, really useful for the channel. But where we're at right now is we're just applying the decal onto the Bladeguard Veteran, and we're just applying a bit of matte varnish onto some of the areas that are nearly done, that won't necessarily need much in the way of highlights, but can be touched up again with a bit more varnish. But yeah, sometimes it's useful that you can go back as well on a miniature. So if any of you make any mistakes, you can take something like Decal Fix that will strip a little bit of paint, and you can run over a varnish. It won't affect the varnish, but it will remove any extra paint that you've applied. It's like a cheap little trick. But if it works, it works. So do use it. And once we're applying this varnish, this is just going to protect all the bits that I'm finished, that I'm still touching as I'm working on, that might have some rub off, and we don't want that. Just applying that into some of the recesses. Now some of these you might not be able to see just because of the angle that we're at. It is a difficult one. I mean, you've seen any of my long form videos, I tend to wear a set of glasses, Ray-Ban Metas, and I record from that so you have point of view. They're not detailed enough really for this kind of painting video, which is a bit of a shame because I think they'd be really, really useful. Just to have my eyes view whilst I'm painting. But yeah, if they improve on the detail of them in the future, then it's definitely on the cards. I'm just going to hit up these bits of gold here. Again, pieces that I might do a little bit of highlighting to, but for the most part is not really going to be touched now. But we want it to be nicely protected so that it doesn't rub off. So again, any of you that watched the previous video, with all of my gold, I go in with Retributor armor, and then I finish off with Darko Flesh, which is a contrast paint. And it gives this really nice finish to it all. So I highly, highly recommend it if any of you want to try out that technique and you get like a really deep, rich gold. It's a bit like using Reikland Flesh, apart from it leaves a matte finish and it's more all-encompassing, whereas Reikland Flesh will only affect the recessed areas. This will affect all areas of the miniature, which I prefer. But you might not, and that's okay, because this is art, and like all forms of art, you can find your own way that you find more suitable. So now if you can see let me just try and get that in focus. You can see the detail there on his transfer. So that is now going to be drying with the matte varnish, and it's not going to come off. Again, please do leave a like and subscribe to the video. We're not done, don't worry. But yeah, whilst you're still watching, that would be really, really nice. If you're not already, say hi in the chat. Give me something to do whilst I'm here painting. It's the little things in life, like being sat at a table on your own painting. So it's nice to have you guys all here with me. Just going to go back to doing a few little highlights. Now, this rust grey has been sat on the wet palette and has got quite a little bit too wet. Unfortunately, that means it's a bit too opaque. It's thin, it's applying really nicely. But I don't really need thinness right now. Subtlety is not so important at the early stages of highlighting. I mean, to a degree. You don't want to be too sloppy with your paint. Apart from maybe just in that little undersection there. But yeah. Just slowly go through. You'll notice as well, with the Bladeguard Veteran, there is a lot of miniature there. So lots of areas to highlight, lots of intricate details. I think it's half of the reason why it's such a good miniature, is it's very hard to be bored painting it. There's something different to paint everywhere. You can constantly change up colours and tones, and yeah, nice to have on a miniature. So I like to make sure that we shade the underside of that as well, just to ensure it looks three-dimensional. There we go. Let's see if we can see that. Got nice tight control of the lines. It's not always the easiest thing to do, and feel free, if you do make any mistakes, to go back on it. Again, hitting with Macragge Blue. In fact, because we've used the Drakenhof Nightshade, going back in with Macragge Blue almost gives you like an inter layer, or an initial highlight. Like, what I like about Rust Grey is it's quite a nice initial highlight in that it's bright enough to be seen and it's vibrant enough to impact the miniature, but it's not too bright in which you create that crazy contrast that I really don't like on miniatures. Every now and then people will make suggestions of what they like, and I don't particularly like having overly bright highlights. I quite like a more subtle, more natural look to my miniatures, which is a bit silly because it's a You know, nearly 9 foot tall, fully armored monster, essentially. Alright, so we're just getting through the leg piece there. Again, a lot of this we can show in full detail in a future video, because I'm sure at this part you might struggle to see that. Yeah, any of you guys want techniques, any ideas, just leave a little comment below and I will see what we can show you. Nearby I've got some 9th Legion Horus Heresy, so if you want to learn to paint red, we've got some red. If you're just enjoying watching the Bladeguard, that's fine too. It's pretty cool. I like Ultramarines. I know a lot of people take the mick out of them, but they are as Roman as they come. So you see there, I don't know if you can see that nicely, but there's a slight mistake in there. It's a bit too thick. So I'm just going to stop what we're doing, just so I can demonstrate a quick fix. I'm going to get some Ultramarines blue / Macragge blue. Used to be Ultramarines blue back in the day. And then I presume they just couldn't copyright that. Like, they're very litigious these days at Games Workshop. So Macragge blue was a thing. Right, where were we? Back here. So we're just going to touch in with a bit of Macragge blue. Now, looking at that, there's just a tiniest little bit there. Trying to find the light. Okay. Might have gone a little bit farther, so we're just going to let that dry for a second. Reapply the highlight layer. Now, a lot of this takes an awful lot of time. Again, I've not picked a miniature that's particularly fast and easy to do. But to speed paint this, I mean, even just leaving it with Macragge blue with the Drakenhof Nightshade, you still have a nice bit of depth to the paint. You have some natural recesses, some natural lighter spots in which you'll have a gradient anyway. So don't feel like you have to highlight everything. Highlighting is quite a tricky task. It takes many years of practice and experience to get really, really good at it. And some people find it very intimidating, which is understandable, especially when you're first painting as well. But I recommend just practicing, playing about with it, find what you're comfortable with, and then keep pushing the envelope. Now, this is quite a tricky highlight, going around the little details in the leg pieces. And the brush has just started to split, which is not ideal, so we'll just give it a nice little roll. And don't be strangers, please say hi in chat and leave a like and subscribe as well so other people can help find the channel and the videos. Plus it helps the channel grow and means that I can concentrate on doing more videos like this for you all, which I would certainly like, and hopefully you would too. Don't know if any of you could hear that, but that was my cat Tali in the background. So I've got a little bit that I've got to neaten up here. It might be hard to see. The light from your angle is probably a lot better than it is from my angle. I've kind of set it up more for you guys than myself. I know, such a martyr. Okay, I filled that in nicely. But yeah, just get through these little details. Again, the biggest thing with highlighting is having paints that are thin enough that they're going to go on without having to put in a load of force and resistance and break the point of the brush. And the hardest part to actually learn is just to be super accurate. That's where time and practice comes in. And again, I've been doing this since I was about 10-ish. Other than monkey brains. Hi, I just got into the hobby and finished painting my first mini not too long ago and seen your video on my recommended feed. Bladeguard is looking great so far. Appreciating the painting tips as well. Good, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Is there anything that you would like to see in particular, or are you just happy watching? Because for the most part, I'm happy just painting the Bladeguard, but again, we've got different miniatures about. In fact, if you can see, hidden behind door number one, got a little bag there with the Blood Angel symbol. Actually full of Ultramarines. Uh, a few Primaris era stuff. So we've got Reavers, we've got Heavy Intercessors. We've got a few various bits and bats that we can paint. But equally, I have a box not very far away that says Saturnine on it, which is the Horus Heresy starter box. And that'd be a really, really useful one for you to all to see if you wanted. Let's just see the tightness of the highlight. So if we reverse the brush, you can see more. Keeping to either side there of the, what would you call it, the recess between the two armor panels. That's quite tricky. That takes a bit of time to get used to. And the first times that you're doing these, you're probably going to leave big splodges of paint and it's going to fill into that gap. You can then paint into the gap. It's a technique that it's not difficult to do, but it's an extra step. But if you make a mistake, there's always ways to fix it. Even if some of those ways are frustrating and might take a little bit longer. At the end of the day, we're just trying to learn every time we pick up the brush. For me, my biggest step forward since coming back into the hobby has been painting faces again. Took a long time to get back into building up that sort of accuracy. But once I did and kept practicing at it, I'm really, really good at it now. And faces, eyes, they're all coming more natural to me. Which I imagine for a lot of you is quite a tricky challenge. I'll try and give you an example now, actually. So if we look at Titus is a good example. He was done very recently. So if you look at Titus's face, you should be able to see his eyes. If you can zoom in on the screen, or if you're on a TV, it should be big enough. If you can't see it well enough, let me know. But his face, we've got nice natural tones. We've got like a stubble gradient to like normal flesh tone. And his eyes have popped out really nice. Let's have a look. Building my guard army, so I haven't got many blueberry boys myself, apart from Infernus Marines left in the introductory box set. Yeah, the Infernus Marines are actually really, really cool as well. If you've used them in the combat patrols, which I think combat patrol is one of the best sort of like, maybe it's not the most interesting game for 40k, but I think it's a really nice way to test out armies. And the Infernus Marines punch surprisingly well. So I have, I think it's about 5,000 points of guard. All of the miniatures are probably pre 5th edition. It was when Apocalypse first came out, when the plastic Baneblade first came out. That was one of my last miniatures. So I've got quite a big army. 3 Leman Russes, Baneblade, 3 Chimeras, 3 Basilisks, a ton of infantry. Yeah, I have quite a lot of points of different armies. So I can't show you on my phone because my phone is being used to record, but I have around about 6,500 points of Ultramarines. So that's a mixture of the original, like, Devastator Marines, Tactical Marines, Rhinos, Predators, Land Raiders, what they call it, Storm Raven, which the Storm Raven was originally Blood Angels, the 40k Blood Angels. I ended up painting that into Ultramarines because the Ultramarines were featured on Space Marine 2 and they had Storm Ravens. And I'd resisted for a lot of time because Storm Ravens were originally designed to just be for Blood Angels. but obviously Games Workshop loves money. So yeah, I have about 6,500 points of Ultramarines. It's about 4,500 points of Blood Angels, but that is using some of my originals mixed with some of the Horus Heresy Legion models, the 9th Legion models, as proxies. So a little bit of that is cheating. It's not entirely the same. My guard, like I say, is about 4.5, 5k. I have 2k of Tyranids. I think that's again introductory boxes plus previous edition boxes used to contain Tyranids as well. It was like enemy numero uno. What else have I got? Tau. How could I forget Tau? Tau is about 4,000. It might be 4,500 again. It seems to be a number that I settle on quite a bit. Yeah, that's a reasonably sized army. And again, if any of you have seen the Tau Empire video, I have the Storm Surge. So 85% of my Tau army is the original Tau army that I had 15 years ago. And all I've really added to it was the Retaliation card box set, which was the Christmas box set from 24. So that had your Riptide, your Ghost Keel, new Commander, new broadside. It's probably not new to you, but it was new to me. And then I got a Storm Surge. I don't think I've really bought much Tau since. Not really needed to. So I think I've got a character and I've got a couple of characters. Nothing particularly crazy. I've not got Shadow Sun or anything like that yet. But yeah, it's weird how the collection expands so much, and I have 3 boxes full of stuff that needs painting. Some of it is old, which I would like to paint up now more than ever because it's a little bit of nostalgia, and I wouldn't mind playing 4th and 5th edition again. I don't know if that sounds a bit strange, but I'm actually quite tempted just to play a previous edition. Let my 1 wound Space Marines get blown apart by lasguns. So my guard army back in the day was a pretty tough cookie to crack, just because I had massive numbers of troops, massive tanks, and your Lehman Russes, your Basilisks, your Baneblades used to fire out basically dinner plates, the big templates that they use in Heresy. So you just used to mop up elite armies. And these were the days where everything was like a slog match as well. It was less about capturing objectives, doing certain things. It was just beat each other up a bit. Don't know if you can see that, but the varnish has now dried on the transfer. So that's pretty good. Ultramarines definitely get the most love, it seems. Yeah, they really do. And again, I didn't start Ultramarines I technically initially started with Blood Ravens. So any of you that played Dawn of War back in the day, that was my jam. And I remember having to upgrade my PC because my PC wasn't fast enough to play Dawn of War, and that's all I wanted to play. One of my friends had it next door, and he could play it on his, and I couldn't play it on my computer. So, growing up a little bit poorer, that was like things to strive to. And when I could eventually afford to get, I think it was whilst the ones with the Cadians, the Imperial Guard out, Winter Assault. So when Winter Assault came out, I had enough money then to build my PC and add like a graphics card that could then play it on like low to mid settings, which now is pretty crazy because my MacBook would devastate that, although it can't play 32-bit games anymore. But the switch from Blood Ravens to Ultramarines was mainly when I started reading all of the lore, seeing all the character sheets, and again, they were the coolest thing. So I ended up leaning into them fully. I ended up reading the books, and I think, have I brought him down? I might not have remembered. Yeah, I've not brought him down. Uriel Ventress, the captain of the 4th Company. Graham McNeil, who's an incredible writer for Black Library. He did a number of books around this character. I think he's on 6 or 7 books. I have all of them. I have the limited edition for Swords of Calth as well, which is really, really, really cool. Or at least it is to me. And apparently he has another trilogy that he wants to write, has pitched to GW, and we'll just see if it gets picked up. So yeah, this is one of my 4th Company lieutenants. This is actually created from the free miniature that you can pick up at a Warhammer store. So the belt buckle, I took off the pin from the flamethrower, inverted it, pressed it back in, not all the way, glued it in place, and that's basically finished his belt buckle with a bit of highlighting. He's had, Bladeguard veteran plasma pistol. So you can see the Bladeguard veteran piece there on the arm. His other arm, again, is just a normal Bladeguard veteran power sword. So the Bladeguard veteran kit, if you do want to continue collecting Ultramarines, if you want to do that as well as the Guard, again, I say that as if they're really cheap and you can just collect them all. There's a lot of parts that you can interchange, and you can make Joe Blogg's character into whoever you want, really. And you'll notice as well, old school helmet. That's actually from one of my old Tactical Marine sets. This isn't a one of these in here. So if I show you in here, that helmet there is one of the old school style, but the grill's a bit smaller. It's very, very close. It's not absolutely perfect. It's probably better detailed. But yeah, you can do these cool things with these miniatures. Again, the whole thing of Warhammer is it's a creative art. You get to design to a degree, build, paint, and then play with your miniatures. So it's an all-encompassing hobby. Let me read through as well. Currently, I've got a little under 1k, 26-man squad, 2 Lehman Russes, 1 Rogel Dawn, and a Valkyrie because they're cool. Valkyries are cool. I have a Valkyrie upstairs, and I'm just trying to think. They used to have a Vendetta gunship, and back in the day, there used to be the film V for Vendetta. So what I ended up doing was taking my Valkyrie, putting it with full las cannons, because that was the thing at the time, and I hand drew the V for the mask for V. It looked fantastic. Yeah, I can bring it down, but it's a bit space all-encompassing. It's quite a large model. I'm trying to find words. So yeah, what else you said? Have you just started reading the Horus Heresy books? Yeah, I've got quite a few of them, and not all of them, not like that. I have probably about 10 of the Horus Heresy books. I have the full Siege of Terror series, not counting them as the Horus Heresy books. And I have things like Valdor and Luther, so some of the special character books. I was tempted to get Eidolon, but I've not heard great things about Eidolon, so I don't particularly want to pick it up if it's not a great book. But a lot of the stuff that I'm reading at the minute is 40k, and Farinarios is not here, but I'm currently reading his book, Master of Rights. And it turns out that Rob Young is a local lad to my local gaming store, and he signed my copy, and he'd seen a few of my Blood Angels that were painted on one of the forums there. And so he left a comment going, Blood Angels are cool, but Ultramarines are better. Which is nice, because I don't think he also knows that I paint and collect Ultramarines as well. Right, we're going to put on the second transfer just so that can dry. And looking here, we have quite a lot of options. So we have a Sergeant's option there, which is with the red skull. I'll just try and move that further away so it doesn't flicker the light too much. We have a nice one there with a Crux Terminatus in it. We have a fully gold one and one with a white, with a gold trim on a white one. So I think we're going to go for, what have we got on there? A Laurel, so we don't want to copy a Laurel. 13th Legion. So there's one here, and it just says XIII, which is of course the 13th Legion, which is what the Ultramarines are. If you're reading the Horus Heresy book, or series, No Fear is apparently a very good one, and if you keep thinking or you keep hearing that Ultramarines are all poster boys and they're a bit meh, I think you'll really like Rabute Gilliman losing his noggin and going absolutely crazy. He's just possessed by Khorne, just going absolutely nuts, smashing word bearers. I'm just going to apply that. I'll try and get that 13 central, and everything else can work around there. I will say these transfers are really, really, really good. Sometimes just to get them to fit on nicely, I don't mind a little bit of bunching at the top. And what I'll end up doing is just painting a little bit of Macragge blue in between that, just to space it out a little bit more. But yeah, you can see him there. He's looking pretty cool. If I were to pick another army, if my budget allowed me, I totally would go for. Yeah, the Ultramarines are awesome, and the best thing with playing Ultramarines, as long as your wallet can take the absolute pain of having 9,000 Calgar models in the space of, 20 years, then you're always going to have amazing characters. They bring back old favorites, like the Victrix Guard are just the original Honor Guard, and I have the original Honor Guard set. It's back there. I won't go and grab them because it's a bit of a faff, but essentially they didn't change much with the models. In fact, I do have one right here. So this guy and this guy, even in terms of the way that they've posed them, just see how purposeful that is. Guy on the left is the original Honor Guard. And then since the Primaris era, and obviously a very recent release, they've now done the Victrix Honor Guard, which obviously wasn't a named thing prior. But look at the poses. They've literally done identical poses. Obviously it's plastic, so you can play about with it as you please. But they've honoured the originals, which of all of these miniatures getting remade now, apart from Sanguinary Guard, which was unfortunate, is really nice to see them going back after the original design language. Same with Calgar. You look at Calgar and his posing is identical to the original, with very few differences. That's what I want from Warhammer. If you're going to recycle these miniatures like intercessors, which are clearly just tactical marines but without the special weapons, then yeah, make them look, of that sort. Apart from Primaris didn't have the variety, which apparently they're going to fix in next edition. So we'll have some form of tactical marines, fingers crossed. I mean, obviously they're all rumours, but it would be nice just to have some variety. It is the spice of life after all. Oh, my cats are fighting. Tali, come here. Leave your mum alone. I picked up a bundle for the first 3 books, still reading Horus Rising at the moment. I've heard it's a really good book. I've not read it yet. I'm still getting through, let's say, I've got to get through, what's it called? Master of Rites. And then I want to start hitting into the Dawn of Fire series. So I want to do the 40k books. I've gone through Dark Imperium series, the trilogy with Archmagos Belisarius Call, which I highly recommend. If you even read any of the Dark Imperium series, this is my Decimus Felix. And I had someone recently put, oh, well, Felix has a lot more gold trim on him. He does in the very latest book, but early on when he's just a fairly early captain, he's pretty humble. But yeah, really nice miniature. Again, just this as a captain model is frigging ace. Just the amount of detail they've gone to. Obviously, we've got a dead, what they call them, Death Guard. There we go. Yeah, he also slaps in combat as well, so playing him is a really fun character. Now, that is drying off, so we're going to just go get some Storm Shield. I'm going to try not to get the wrong bottle like I did the other day. And I accidentally put Hard Coat all over instead of Storm Shield, so everything went shiny instead of matte. And I lost a little bit of detail to the white fuzzy haze. Yeah, just apply that on top. You can do it relatively thickly, just make sure it's nicely protected, but once it's gone on, try not to move it around then, because it will act the same as liquid, as water would do, and it will start to move around again. Apart from this isn't as viscous as water, so it won't move around as much. It'll get stuck in a position that you don't want. So take your time with it. But once it's dry, then you're fine to just keep going. Should touch on certain little gold bits there. Basically anything that I might accidentally rub a bit too much and take some paint off of. So I'm sure at this point you've seen quite a bit of me painting blue. So if you want, we can go on to capes and techniques with capes as well. So we have Talan sand, which is our base. So if you look at the cloak at the moment, that is just flat Talan sand. So nothing in particular. You can see quite bright, quite deep shadows, and that's just because of how bright that light is. It's frustrating to a degree. Make sure I've got the right brush here. Try to. But I looked at the live that I did yesterday, and I'd say the one problem was the lighting. So hopefully this is nicely lit. And would you let me know if you're watching on TV or if you're watching on a phone? And if you're watching on a phone, is the detail okay? So I have it up on an iPad in front of me. But that's a bit of a bigger screen. If it's on a TV, I would hope it would look crispy enough. Although I only uploaded at 1080, which I think is a bit of a shame. I eventually want to add some nice bases like that to my minis, hopefully. Yeah, the trophy set, there's I think it's about £18, £19, Battlefield trophies. It's just a regular set that you can get at any time from Warhammer. There's no like rush to race out and grab it. But very much so, that head was from there. My Lieutenant Titus has a Rubric Marines head on it as well. It's also a nice little excuse just to paint something different. So even that head there, or it might be that head there, one of these, and the skull at the back, that's all from the Battlefield trophy set. So it's just a little bit of set dressing, just make his model look like it stands out a bit more. It's a good idea to just play around with them. Again, you know, add some character to your miniatures. After all, you want to make them look as good as they possibly can do. I mean, I understand the hobby is obviously very expensive, and I won't shy away and say, oh yeah, I can keep affording to buy new miniatures all the time. I can't. But I don't think there's many hobbies that give you this much value for your money. I mean, obviously there's similar hobbies that will do so, but even then, finding places to play and lots of players, that's a more difficult thing. I think with Warhammer, you've always got a really good player base. You've got a nice expandable world. It's a nice hobby to be in, knowing that you've always got newly refreshed miniatures. The detail in the miniatures is pretty bang on. They're fun to build, fun to paint. I mean, they've done a very good job of just being like a very vertical company. And yeah, quality seems great. No real issues on my part. Yeah, I've only had. It was really the heavy intercessors, and it was probably at that point an old tool. So one of my many jobs that I do, I'm an actor, but I'm also a toolmaker. So occasionally I do a bit of engineering work. And with the engineering side of things, I tend to find like I polish die-cast tools. So when I see people complaining about the quality of Games Workshop's tools, I think, not really. They're top of their game. And I feel like for the value of what you get, yes, it's darned expensive, but also the quality is absolutely there. Again, if you live in paradise, it's hard to see outside of paradise. And I think Warhammer is very much so in a spot of paradise at the minute. Especially all the money that came in from Warhammer 2. They seem to have spent that quite nicely on really pushing the hobby forward, which is nice to see. So there we go. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just try and adjust the light. So we've got a little bit of variation in there. I've not actually talked through what I've just done, funnily enough. So I've got a wet palette in front of me now. If you're quite new to the hobby, you might never have used a wet palette before. You might not know how to use a wet palette. This is an Army Painter wet palette. It's the XL one, so you've got lots of space on there to mix paints. But it also keeps your paints from drying out. So this paint originally was quite old. I've added a bit to it today, but it stopped it from being wasted. But it also allows you to do mixing. So we've got Talon sand on one side there, Wraithbone on the other side. I've mixed together a section, and I've just gone in with a bit more Wraithbone, added another little blend off to the side there. So we started off with about 50-50. So that's what I use the Talon sand as the base layer, the 50-50 as sort of your mid-tone, and then we've gone for like a mid-highlight using a little bit of the Wraithbone, or quite a bit of the Wraithbone with a tiny bit of the mix of the 50-50. And then we're just going to go in with a neat line of pure Wraithbone. Just try and find the light here. That is the only thing that's a little bit tricky of having the light set in the corner there. Equally, if you can see my face from the side there. Oh, you might not be able to see it actually, but lots of concentration when you get to this sort of stage of final highlights. And I'm an ex-soldier, and what I used to do when I was handling rifles, before you release a shot, you always either hold your breath or you exhale. And I find a slow exhale quite works nicely for me. And somehow that is a transferable skill to Warhammer. Don't worry, I didn't do anything crazy. Didn't go into any hot zones, so I'm quite lucky in that regard. But yeah, it's a technique that has followed me, and I do miss shooting. It's a very good shot. And I think part of that is what makes me a good painter as well. I have good hand-to-eye coordination. Let's have a read there. For sure, really looking forward to the new Dawn of War and Total War 40k game. Yeah, both of them are going to be amazing, and it's interesting when they both came out, just looking from gameplay trailers, they both had a very, very similar look to them. So it'd be interesting to see the differences between the two and how they play. But Dawn of War, I'm very excited for, because you're going to get to play Primarch. Lionel Johnson's going to be really, really nice to paint up. At some point, I will get Lionel Johnson. I don't know if you've met Gilliman, but that is the Avenging Sun. Try and get the sword nicely in the light there, so you can see the variation and shade. This entire sword started life as yellow, and I slowly added a red shade. Now that red shade was ancient. That was one of my 15-year-old paints that had somehow survived. In fact, is that it here? There you go. Bal red. And I think this is when they just started switching over to these sort of style of pots. And even that is a slightly older pots design. But yeah, Bal red wash. And the more I added, because it had obviously aged and thickened, it just gave you this really smoky finish at the bottom there. That's not adding black or anything like that. That's purely with red. It's like, it's just an awesome finish. I couldn't have asked for better. He was a nightmare to paint, by the way. And this was the first miniature I painted since coming back. I think technically it was a Storm Raven. I keep remembering which one it was. I think the Storm Raven I painted before I started buying more miniatures. And then as Space Marine 2 came out, Sarah, my fiance, she was going to, I think she was looking after like a mum's house, something like that. So I had a week off. I booked a week off of work. I'd ordered the ultimate starter set, so all the terrain, all the miniatures, the 2 combat patrols, and this guy. I think I spent, like 150, 200 quid or somewhere around those lines. Really splurged, and it was like, this is incredible. I I was building miniatures more than I was playing Space Marine 2. And the idea of getting Space Marine 2 was to save money not having to buy miniatures. Never really works out that way though, does it? But yeah, he's ace. The trim for him probably took 20 hours on its own. This miniature is somewhere in the region of 30 hours, and I had a very limited palette at the time of painting it. So I was using a lot of my old old paints. I think I did get there's like the paint starter set that has Macragge Blue, um, Balthazar Gold, which is the deeper gold. I think if I have a pot of that hanging around here somewhere, I'll go grab that. And I was literally, there we go, yeah, Balthazar Gold. So if you look at the base of my early golds, that all started with Balthazar, and then I built up with Retributor on top of that. And then I was mixing, without a wet palette, didn't have any of this, mixing paints and trying to get a brighter gold as we went along. His miniature came out really nicely. The only downside looking at it now is for my highlight, I had Thunderhawk Blue, which is one of the paints that comes originally in the pack. There we go. That compared to Rust Grey, Rust Grey stands out as like the mid highlight that you really, really want. That pops. That is a slightly different, what's the word I'm looking for? Vibrancy. And it doesn't pop off as much. So if I get, I'll put him here, and then we'll get my nice little buddy boy here. This is one of the first ones that I started using Rust Grey with. As well as his blue armor has Null Oil all over it. And Null Oil gives you a very a muted shade of blue, whereas Dakarov Nightshade gives you a really vibrant blue still. Hence why I now use that instead. So if I was to paint him again, which I'm not going to do, that would be an insane task. He would be done very differently. He would come out a bit bluer. His armor would be a bit richer. Again, if you compare his gold to someone like Dante, Dante is a really nice, rich, vibrant gold. Really easy to paint him, by the way. Again, painted with Retributor armor, gone off with Dark Oath Flesh, which is a contrast paint. If you're planning on doing any gold, I recommend straight up Retributor armor, 1 to 2 coats, a layer of Dark Oath Flesh. I've been calling it Dakarov Flesh for ages, which is not what it's called. But yeah, that gives you a really nice, muted, like a matte, rich red gold. It's my favorite style. It's not everyone else's favorite. Some people like really bright golds. I like to think they're using some form of alloy that is not impervious to tarnishing, and that they do get a bit messy and a bit darkened and stained, a bit lived in. A bit like, you look at his shield there and it just looks a bit tired and worn and used. You think that piece of equipment is, I mean, fair enough, it's Era Indomitus style Storm Shield, so it's probably not that old, but it'll still be 30, 40 years old. I think the oldest possession that I own in my house is I'm going to say 130 years old, 135 years old, an old pocket watch. That's the oldest thing I have. And you think, apart from maybe his armor, again, Era Indomitus kind of throws off timelines a little bit. But going back to someone a bit more classic, do we have... There you go, Ralderon. So this is Horus Heresy, this is Ninth Legion Blood Angels. Ralderon here, his armor is, well, could be hundreds of years old. You know, it might have been early Crusade style art. I'm not saying that it's, yeah, even that's not quite. I think this is where Era Indomitus is going to change a bit, and the Primaris are going to change with more variation, more archaic styles mixed with new. Centos, I don't have him here. He's over there. Centos has an original style chest plate, so that's where it'd be nice to see them going and adding in a bit more of the old style with the new. Just bring back a little bit of the character of the old miniatures. Let me catch up on what you've wrote, sorry. Glad I picked up a wet palette like yours. Genuinely was super useful as a beginner. Yeah, it it goes a long way. The foam itself has, I mean, this foam is a year old. I've been using it for a long time. It did start to get a bit fluffy and moldy. If that happens, I just have a regular mold and mildew spray. I douse the foam in it, kills off all the mold. You can use it again then for a few weeks and just every now and then top up, because once it's on, it's hard to get rid of. Again, it probably comes as much from the other side of the plastic cover. So just keep that in mind. Something like a mold and mildew remover is really, really nice just to keep this going for longer. You get a nice clean bleach smell if that's the kind of thing that you like. Let me read through the next bit. I'm very much a newbie when it comes to the lore. Just taking my time with it and not trying to get too overwhelmed. Don't blame you. If you want a reasonably quick introduction into everything that is new in 40k, I think you can get this for about £25 online. And this is the ultimate guide. DK books. This isn't through Warhammer directly, but you can get it through Amazon. And again, let me try and make a little bit of space just to give you an idea. You've got quite a lot of chapters, a lot of lore. So you're going to have all sorts in there, like detailed breakdowns of miniatures. Like there's so much in there. You see, you can just skip through all of that and just see a million things. They go into all the different Xenos factions. So if you want like a really well-written sort of breakdown of everything, everyone, then that's your book. And Gav Thorpe and Guy Haley are some fantastic writers on the Black Library team. And this book is useful for many things. So when you're wanting to paint miniatures, this is going to give you a really good insight as to ideas of how to paint something. Maybe it's not going to specifically tell you colors and things like that, but as you grow in the hobby, you can start to just look at things and go, I know how to make this now. You'll figure that side of it out. Let me just pop that back and create a little bit of a kerfuffle. There we go. Right, that's all back. Yeah. Really good book. The DK books have two as well. They've got a character encyclopedia. This I think you can get from Amazon for about 15 quid, and it comes with a Lieutenant Titus miniature in there. I've not opened it because I have a Lieutenant Titus already. But yeah, again, just lots of detail of all the miniatures. It's about 200 pages. Yeah, just shy of 200 pages of miniatures. So a really, really useful book. Again, just to keep you inspired. Sorry, the light was flickering there. Unfortunately, that's one of the downsides of having such a bright LED. So look. I do know he's a Primarch though. He's a really nice miniature. I presume that was at Dante. Dante is amazing. Again, the joys of Space Marines is there's so many different chapters, you can paint them your own way. Blood Angels speak to me. I love the colour red. Clearly, I also love the colour blue because I love Ultramarines. Right, where were we on this miniature? So we have applied the varnish. Oh yeah, we're doing the cloak, weren't we? And we'll just change from that to adding a little bit of blue in here, just to blend that in. You see, just added a little bit more separation in there. We're going to hit onto the other side as well. It's a bit hard to see through the camera on your end, but there's just a tiny bit of hazing. So we're just going to get rid of some of that hazing with a little bit of Macragge blue. And joys is, if you do make any mistakes, you've got it matte varnished as well. Now, depending on what your preferences are, you can add a bit of battle damage as well to these, which I'll go through in a second. So you think Bladeguard veteran, he's, one of the older members of the chapter. His armor is going to have seen some stuff as he's been fighting a lot. And depending on where they are in the campaign, if you played Space Marine 2 yet, Space Marine 2 is a really good way to show just how brutal it is for a Space Marine on campaigns. They don't have time to fix up their armor, which is obviously quite a necessary thing when you're fighting all the time. And start all of a sudden your servos stop working. I mean, obviously all of these are forms of power armor, so it's not nice when they go wrong. It'd be quite dangerous. So just gonna carefully add little details into that. So just get the focus in there. See that little bits of battle damage. Just so it doesn't look so new and shiny. Again, you can do this to the trim pieces as well if you want. Black is a very useful tool for any form of battle damage. And you can use a mixture of something like Abaddon Black, which is the main Citadel Black. Or you can use something like Black Legion, which is the contrast paint equivalent. And it's a really nice paint as well. Let's give that a bit of a shake. I think it's... Oh no, we have actually got some there. I was going to say it's too thick, but it's not. These paint pots, by the way, are horrendous. They don't close properly, they let air in, and they do dry up over time. I mean, talking over the space of a year for a paint to dry up, but it soon catches up if you're not keeping on top of it. So, yeah, just do little nicks onto both edges there, just to show that, he's had a few little close calls. And even on his helmet there, we can just do a quick little scratch. You probably won't see that on this video as well, but oh no, it seems to be coming out nicely. Tiny little thin scratches on his helmet. Bit daunting to come up with my own paint scheme, but luckily enough for me, there's hundreds of videos and guides that I followed to know which paints you should use for my Cadians. Yeah, I've always found it quite an interesting one with Cadians, because the usual thing is like a beige and green mix. But the actual base of Acadian, that armor is supposed to be universal for, hundreds and thousands and millions of different worlds. So you can do whatever you wish. One of the things that I would like to do with mine, but I cannot be bothered repainting them all, is doing the Ultramarine Auxilia. And if you look at the Warden of Ultramar box, that's got a few special examples of named characters for the Wardens of Ultramar. That's something I'd be quite tempted to do, but it would be an awful lot of effort, and I already have a lot of Ultramarines to paint, a lot of Tau to paint. I mean, even here in this video, you think, I mean, yes, I'm talking and I'm doing little demonstrations and things, but this is taking quite a lot of time. But again, he's not a main character. He's not like a full-blown character, but he is quite an important miniature. So it does take a little bit longer just to go through all of these details and do him a bit of justice. Again, I'm doing some things to simplify it, like the golds. I'm not doing multiple highlights. We are just using a contrast paint to add in that detail that we need. And with the blues, the shade there, the Drakenhof Nightshade, just gives you that little bit of speed and adding detail. And it can be left at that again. It doesn't have to be overly crazy. But the highlights really do soak up your time. So you don't have to highlight. Don't feel like you have to do absolutely everything at once. And as you said there, you know, the shoulder pads, the trim element of it is quite difficult. Getting to a point where you can just neatly apply a line onto the inside of a shoulder pad to separate the trim and the blue of the, you know, regular shoulder. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. And you'll probably find in a year's time, it's no longer an issue for you. But it might take you a few weeks, it might take you a few months. Don't worry about it. Don't feel pressured that you've got to do everything at once and you have to be the best painter in the world. You know, I'm by far away, you know, not the best painter in the world. I'm not bad. My technique is very much so the old school method of sort of like the box art with old school GW paint style. But I've seen a lot of the new guys that are doing, you know, like realistic lighting and things like that. And it's all pretty cool, but it's not the style that I grew up with. It's not the style that I particularly care for as much. So, you know, find your own way, find your own style. The box art style is one style, but you might look at, I mean, you think how many different painting videos that you can go out there and see different styles. Go and explore, play about with different styles, find out what you like to paint, how you like them to be painted. And if you're scared of painting faces for especially Cadians, because everyone's got an exposed face, I recommend you paint the face with, where is it? Bit of Wraithbone, and you go over your Wraithbone with Darko Flesh. So you don't have to put this on super thick, you can thin it down a little bit. Just a little bit of this goes a really long way with adding a bit of depth to a face as well as the correct color tone. It's a rich browny reddy sort of tone, so any of my miniatures that you see the faces of will have had Darko Flesh applied to it first. Just for an example there. Got Calgar's face, and you can see just by his hairline, you've just got that nice rich reddy sort of finish to it as well. It's really nice natural tones. Mainly it's because I had too much paint at the tip of my brush. Yep, that's understandable. Again, it's a learning game, and if you can get those mistakes out of the way nice and early, that's a win, really. Keep up with, you know, other YouTubers as well. Look at different tips, and again, keep finding what works best for you. Because I can give you a few examples of what works nicely for me, but at the end of the day, for your miniatures, you might find my style's not applicable, it's not appropriate to what you like, and that's all good. Just get a bit of paint off of that. I'm going to go back to the detail brush. I don't know why I keep going back to blue. I want to finish off this tabard. One of the really nice things I like with the veterans, just in general, is how they've got these finely detailed tabards. Just going to finish this off, and that way I don't have to complain at myself for not doing it. That's a bit thin now. So we mix these two a bit closer together. Again, the lighting for me here is a bit poorer. But that's okay. Working reasonably well, and we can always put on 2 layers. Although it is a little bit more difficult just because you lose a little bit of accuracy when you do more and more layers. Don't mind me whilst I focus a little bit, even though it's a mid-tone. The other downside of the Bladeguard Veteran is that iron halo on top really likes to find your flesh. Just digs in a little bit. Yeah, Games Workshop are really kind of making sure that these plastic parts are really sharp. Again, just for people that have just joined us, if you do like these sort of videos, you want some painting tips and tricks, please leave a like on the video and subscribe as well. Really helps the channel, as I am trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers so I can start to slacken off on some of my other jobs and focus more on creating for you guys. Again, it's quite a large undertaking just to get the subscriber count and the view count as well. But it's really appreciated for everyone that is watching and enjoying it. And, you know, even just have a platform where we can actually go through and play around a little bit. Mix that through. We've got our mid-tone highlight here. Just got like a little tiny split on the brush. Just to make the situation a bit more fun. There we go. Don't know if you can see that. It's just by stomach. Probably need to add in another lighter layer. Skin tones were difficult. I had to put some regular Cadian flesh tone and a contrast paint. Not too happy with it. Just check that. And I'm not too happy with it, yeah. Again, playing about and experimenting with it. It's better than what it used to be, the old school technique, and I see it every now and then, people still undercoating everything black and working up from black, and black is a terrible, like, start to work with paints, especially when you're working with thinner paints as well, because it takes so many layers to get it to where you want it to be. So with your flesh tones, that tends to be the easiest method, as we've already discussed. Give it a play. We obviously have like Reichland Flesh Shade, which again is very similar to Dark Oath, but it applies itself less to the highlights, and it won't overall affect the tone of the rest of it. So that's probably where you found that might have been a bit too deep and dark. But it's a learning experience. It's easy to try again, find a new method that works better for you. Just going to hit up a little bit on his shoulder pad there. Just really add like a little bit of breaking down of some of the elements on here. Just want it to look a little bit battered in places. Small details, and again, for most of your army, you don't really want to put in this much effort, just because it's a lot. You want to be able to have fun, but also make your way in progress for your army.